Man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool and you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope.
As an avid Android user, there's a few things I come to expect when it comes to picking up a new phone. Things like customizability, things like new features, and usually bigger batteries. But when it comes into practice, they usually end up being more gimmicky and not really polished. And that's where I think iPhones differ. They seem to take the more professional, simplistic road when it comes to each iteration of phones. But is it enough to make me want to switch?
But dude, the way I carry my baggage, this heavy load on my shoulders might turn me to a savage. Is that why I gotta...
What's up guys, it's Callum here from True Tech Reviews, and this is my iPhone 12 Pro Max review from an Android user's perspective. Now this is a totally new approach for me, as this is the first iPhone I've actually ever owned, and the user experience that I've had over the past 2 weeks has been really interesting. Now I like to start my phones from fresh when it comes to setting things up, so backing up my Note 20 Ultra wasn't necessary here. But when it came to things like WhatsApp, I noticed Apple really only seemed to let you back up and restore from iCloud. Now on my Note 20 Ultra I had everything saved to Google Drive, so getting my messages from my Note 20 Ultra to my iPhone 12 Pro Max just wasn't easy, and to be honest, I still haven't managed to do it. But even with that hiccup, I went into this review with an open-minded attitude and just really wanted to see if the iPhone 12 Pro Max can do enough to make me really want to switch over to it and use it as my daily driver.
Man, I still don't feel that comfy in my own skin. It's hard to find your self-worth as a broken kid. These frames never held images.
The iPhone 12 Pro Max has gone back to its roots when it comes to design, as the more squared off boxy design is reminiscent of the iPhone 5 and the iPhone SE, and to be honest, I really like it. I mean, when you come from phones that are more rounded, that obviously feel nicer in the hand, it is slightly different and it's a bit strange to get used to, but after a while I actually got used to it, and to be honest, I much prefer it because it's a lot easier to hold. I think it's a lot grippier, so just the security factor of it, just being able to know that it's clamped in my hand and I'm not going to drop it, to me that's just much better than having something that's more rounded, and especially with the Samsungs and a lot of the phones now where they're rounded on both the front and the back. It does feel really nice in the hand, don't get me wrong, but just being able to hold it without it slipping is just, to be honest, it's quite hard. I mean, I've got a Toast custom cover on here, but just without a case, it is so slippery. Whereas with the 12 Pro Max, I haven't really had any of those issues. Now, on the subject of protection, Apple are using what they've called ceramic shield on the front of the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and they've given the claim that it's actually 4 times better drop resistant than the iPhone 11 Pro Max is. When it comes to the side of the phones, they're using the surgical grade stainless steel, and to me, it doesn't really mean anything, but all I really know is it's a fingerprint magnet. But on a serious note though, stainless steel is actually slightly harder than aluminium is, so when it comes to those micro scratches, the stainless steel on the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max should actually hold up better over time. When I first picked up the iPhone 12 Pro Max, it was a weighty, cold glass and metal sandwich, and to be honest, I really like that. Just having something that weighs this much. Comparing it to my Note 20 Ultra, it doesn't weigh that much different, but just being able to have a phone that weighs this much just screams quality and screams premium, and it is built like a tank.
Felt the paper bag, just gotta get this money cause you know I never had it. I'm feeling like Badu, the way I carry my baggage, this heavy load.
Now I'm not one of those people who do benchmarks or anything like that for performance, because to me the main part of performance is can it do what I'm going to be doing in a day, and if it can do that then I'm happy with it. Because for me, the main things I use my phone for is internet searches, a lot of social media, a lot of emails, and photo editing and some photography as well. So if it can perform well doing that with no hiccups or anything like that, then I'm perfectly fine with that. Obviously your experience may differ, but for me, as long as it can perform those things, because they're the things I'll be doing the most, then I'm perfectly fine with that. And thanks to the A14 Bionic chip, it's been perfect. I've had no issues, no hiccups whatsoever. Everything's felt really smooth. And even without a 90Hz or a 120Hz display, it has felt really smooth. Just navigating iOS and just generally around the whole system has been really smooth. It's one of those things where Apple have optimized iOS so well to work with these displays. And realistically, for me, I think the 60Hz display on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is almost up there with the 90Hz displays, just because it is a lot smoother than all of the 60Hz displays I've already used. But just generally the whole smoothness and the feel of the phone, because of those optimizations, have been incredible. And with battery life, I've generally been quite unlucky with phones I've got. I've had the Note 20 Ultra, I've had the S20 Ultra, and both of them have pretty huge batteries, to be honest, but I've had dreadful battery from them. I mean, I've had, on my Note 20 Ultra, I've had slightly better battery life, but the S20 Ultra I've been having like 3-4 hours screen on time, and that's it, it's dead. And I understand, obviously, there's the differences between the Exynos and the Snapdragon variants of them, but even so, I'm in the UK, so I've had just so many issues with having these, and I've had them for a while since like the S9. I've been having these issues, but realistically, I'm looking for something that has a better battery life because I'm on my phone so often, and I'm generally either having to carry a power bank around or a secondary phone just so I can utilize the other phone if my main phone does die. But with the 12 Pro Max, I haven't had any issues whatsoever. I mean, I'm starting to get it to go under 40%, to be honest. I've had it for just over 2 weeks now, and granted, because of the whole pandemic we're in at the moment, we haven't actually been able to go out a lot of the time, but the times I have gone out, I've been using 5G, I've been using cameras, I've been using social media, internet, video, music, everything that you'd expect to drain the battery loads. But realistically, I've been ending the day with 45%, sometimes even more, and that's getting about 4 to 5 hours screen on time. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but yeah, it's been amazing. And to be able to get through a whole day, I mean, I've been waking up at 6-7 o'clock in the morning, going until about midnight, and to be able to last that long and actually get a battery that is performing how I'm wanting the batteries to perform on these other Android phones I've been using, to me that's a really big benefit, and that may even be one of the main factors as to if I was to switch, because being able to end the day on being able to end the day on enough battery to even last me through till the next day if I needed to, that's just really important to me.
By 27, he'll be dead or in prison shampoo. Yeah, these are all the terrible conditions that we bind and we put inside the mind.
For me, display is one of the most important parts of a phone, and it's obviously because we're looking at displays all the time, and if you're outside they need to be bright and everything. The iPhone 12 Pro Max has a really impressive screen, but it has one drawback and a couple of points I'm going to mention as well. So the 1284 by 2778 Super Retina XDR OLED display has been amazing. It's really bright, it's got 800 nits, it's also got a peak brightness of 1200 nits, so just being able to have it out in the sun, even on the sunniest of days, there's no issues with that whatsoever. And it's also got support for Dolby Vision, which means colors are going to be punchy but not too oversaturated. And the detail and the highlights and the shadows are also amazing as well, thanks to HDR10. The one thing Apple have missed, as I mentioned earlier, is obviously a high refresh rate display. And if they had included it on the Pro models, so the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max, I would have been okay with that. But they obviously haven't included it on any of them, so that is a bit of a disappointment. But I think, to be honest, I don't really, I notice it, I notice the differences between 60, 90, 120 Hertz, but for me, it's not that big of a deal, and a lot of general consumers won't really notice the difference or won't benefit from the difference of that. So for me, I think having that better battery life is actually more important and more beneficial than having that higher refresh rate display. And for me, that's just one of the most important things. So another thing to mention is there has been a few issues with some of the units where there's been green tinting at a lower brightness on black displays and also some flickering. Apple are aware of this. They've seen it on their Apple community post and everything like that, and they are coming up with a fix for it. I think they'll be replacing those units. Luckily, I haven't had any issues with mine, and I will let you know. I'll make a follow-up video of the whole process if I do end up getting it on mine, but as of this video, I've had no issues with it whatsoever. So the speakers on these are also no slouch. It's slightly louder than my Note 20 Ultra while also preserving detail at the higher volumes, and also there's slightly less distortion as well. So if it comes to speakers and things like content consumption, this iPhone will have no issues, and to be honest, it's probably the best pair of speakers I've heard on a phone that I have owned.
Crime everywhere, you're selling false hope cause you just don't care. You just don't care. You just...
This is the first iPhone ever that Apple have given a slight camera upgrade in the Pro Max model over the Pro. The 12 Pro Max has a slightly larger sensor which lets in a bit more light, which in turn allows for better nighttime photography, better nighttime videography with lower noise, and also it gives a more natural background blur. The main camera also uses a new form of in-body stabilization called sensor shift. That's where the sensor is actually moving around inside the phone itself, compensating for any micro jitters or micro movements you may make when filming a video or taking photos, for example. And that's over the more traditional form of stabilization in phones, which is optical image stabilization. That's where the camera itself is actually moving. And the sensor shift allows for a bit smoother of a video when it comes to stabilization, and a bit better in terms of stabilizations for things like night mode photos, which will in turn help for a smoother, less grainy, less blurry look on your night mode photos. The other camera that's changed is actually the telephoto, so this now gives you a 2.5x zoom versus the standard 2x, and it makes the effective focal length of the camera closer to 65mm rather than 52, and that just allows for a bit more depth in your photos, and also obviously being able to get that slight bit further when zooming in. It also allows for 12 times digital zoom as well rather than 10. Though it isn't that great, but it does give you that bit more flexibility if you're wanting to use that. Another thing that Apple announced on the keynote for these iPhone 12s is they can film Dolby Vision HDR at 4K 60, up to 4K 60 FPS on all three lenses, and also the Apple Pro RAW as well, which is Apple's version of a RAW photo. And while I haven't tried any of these myself, I have seen a few different examples, and I'll leave them linked in the description below. There was a video I watched that was absolutely incredible for the Dolby Vision HDR as well as the Apple Pro RAW. You can use Apple Pro RAW now if you're on the iOS 14.3 beta, but as of the standard public releases, the Pro RAW isn't available at the moment. But just go and check them out. I know Jonathan Morrison's also shot a few music videos with them, so I'll leave them linked in the description below as well. But I know at the moment compatibility isn't the greatest with the HDR video that Apple can record, just because of not having the right displays, not having the right codec and everything to be able to like add it into your video editor, everything like that. So at the moment it is a bit of a faff, but once all the programs have come to support this codec and everything, it will be great, it will be absolutely fine. And I think once it becomes a bigger thing, once more people get the HDR displays and everything, I think there'll be more and more content in HDR, and even if not, it just gives you that flexibility if you're doing mobile filmmaking or anything like that. And the same with Pro RAW. When Pro RAW comes out publicly, I think there'll be some incredible things that photographers can do. If you compare it up with moment lenses, for example, any of that sort of thing, that will really push the boundaries of mobile photography, and just generally I think it's just a really big step forward that Apple have taken for that.
You know we in the deep south, so let's keep it real. This is what they used to mob, lynch, drag, and kill. I never made the party cause I felt the pain.
Well, I have only used the 12 Pro Max for 2 weeks now. I'll keep testing it over the next coming weeks, and I'll see if it can do enough to actually stick as my main phone, because I think it's really interesting. I mean, I've been on Android for a good while now, and just switching over has been really interesting. It's been a completely different experience, and it's kind of been a learning curve as well. It's been like, I've had obviously those issues I was having with WhatsApp, those sorts of things, but if I do get on with it as well as I'm getting on with it at the moment, if it does end up holding up over time, then I think I'm not going to be disappointed. But for now, the Note 20 Ultra is going to be in the passenger seat. It'll be taking a step back from the main phone, and I'll be using this for the next coming weeks. I do always have two phones with me, so I normally have two different Android phones. In this case, I will have the iPhone 12 Pro Max as well as the Note 20 Ultra, so I'll have those two phones. So I will still be on Android side of things. But yeah, in terms of this, I think battery life is going to be a huge thing for me, because generally, as I was saying, I have had quite a few issues with battery life, and for me this has been perfect. I haven't had it die on me once yet, so that's going to be a big factor in whether this will stick as my main phone. Thank you all so much for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know why in the comments below. Also, if you have any things you want to mention about making videos better, or anything you want to suggest for me to go through on the channel, just also let me know in the comments below, or you can hit me up on social media. I do have a lot more content coming out soon as well. I've got a house move in the next couple of weeks, so once I've sorted out where I'll be filming and everything, I'll have everything else set up, and I'll have a lot more content coming out, so I'm super excited for that as well. But with that being said, thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Played me for a fool when you made me believe that the lines between love wasn't thick enough to read.